Hey there, folks. Welcome back to the Overflow. My name is Micah Curtis.
And I'm Alex Baldwin, also known as The Hatman.
And we are back to answer the questions that sadly we were not able to get to with this most recent week's podcasts. One thing I do have to say is an apology. Because of the screw-up that we had during the politics podcast, we weren't able to get a chat archive to get the questions that were left over from politics. So if you still have them, hold on to them, and we will get to them next week for sure. It's just we have no way to dig them up, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. But let's go ahead and get into it. Hatman, should we do political stuff or... because we do have a little bit from Twitter left over. Should we do political stuff or entertainment stuff first?
Yeah, let's do that political stuff. If we got a little bit of it from Twitter, let's go ahead and get that out of the way.
So the Duke of Tumwater hit us with a ton of questions. And let me go ahead and see where we can begin here. Okay. The first one he had was, is it just him, or do a lot of leftists these days start to get really testy when you bring up class and classism?
Not really. I've noticed it's only it's only convenient for them to talk about if you're talking about capitalism, or if it somehow leads into them talking about how capitalism is evil.
Yeah, that's basically the long and short of it, because they don't like the idea of classes in general.
No.
Or hierarchies, for that matter, which are natural things.
Yeah.
Which is why I've always found it so puzzling. But
yeah. It's easier to talk about like race and sex and gender and what have you, as opposed to class, because with class you can argue, okay, people have earned their way there. And that throws them for a loop, because they're like, what, earning? What is that?
What is this foreign concept? we don't accomplish things here. We just waste your tax dollars.
Yeah, exactly.
But in all seriousness, though, yeah, they just hate the idea of hierarchies in general. So I guess they do get testy about it, but just in the sense that they don't want them to exist anymore, which I think is ridiculous. Yeah. I think that the beautiful thing about life in general is that your actions have consequences, and those consequences can be good or bad.
Yep.
I just think that, and I think that part of the reason, and this is a little bit of a tangent, I think that part of the reason that so many people are drawn to leftism is because they don't like the idea of the possibility of having to deal with those, consequences.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people
taking responsibility.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there who just want a consequence-free existence. And oddly enough, a lot of them are on the left. And you'll see them say, "Oh, guilt is a bad thing," or being ashamed is a bad thing. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, what? Those are methods of understanding that you messed up. Those are methods of understanding that you've done something wrong. C.S. Lewis talks about in The Problem of Pain that pain is a useful thing in a lot of ways, because it tells you something is wrong, something is not right. Right now I have a pain in my
learning experience.
Yeah, right now I have a pain in my neck. It means I need to stretch it out a little bit. So, yeah. Needless to say, there's definitely a problem that they have with such things. Let's see here. This one should be funny. Thoughts on Alex Jones calling out Joe Rogan for doubting George Soros conspiracy theories?
It's Alex Jones. What do you expect?
Yeah, I really never know what to tell with Alex Jones. I'm legitimately wondering if he really is just one of these guys who is really noisy and he likes to yell and he's got charisma, but he ain't that bright, so he believes like every single conspiracy theory that gets thrown at him. Because I'm not trying to be mean when I say this, but a lot of people who legit believe in conspiracy theories oftentimes aren't that smart.
It's all that tinfoil. It cuts off the circulation to the brain.
But in all seriousness, though, I don't remember where I was reading this. I want to say it was actually from some left-wing professor I was reading at some point talking about conspiracy theories, I think in the Atlantic. and basically saying that, yeah, a lot of people who tend to believe in this are people who, you know, either are A, aren't very smart, and B, have a desire for the world to be more romantic than it is. You know, and that also extends to different things. I was thinking about this last night, and I'll get back to Alex Jones here in a second, but I was thinking, you know, there was a study that came out that from a few scientists that they think that there is a solid chance that we are alone in the universe, and more or less it's a informed opinion, you know, that they've come up with, an informed theory. So, well, if it wasn't informed, it wouldn't be a theory. But point being, it's beyond a hypothesis. And the my thought is you know, you get guys that you'll hear that do honestly believe that we're not alone in the universe. Well, why do they really believe that? Well, they'll cite this and that. I'm like, no, not that. Why? What? Why do you hold on to this belief? What about this belief appeals to you? Well, what's the main reason that you would like the idea of of us not being alone in the universe? Because if we're the only ones, to them it's boring. Romanticization. People want something to fight. People want something to oppose, want something to discover, and so on and so forth. And as such, when you have that sort of a desire without much of a brain, to be honest with you, you tend to fantasize about certain things existing. You know, and there are people that think that instead of George Soros just being an asshole that has a lot of political connections, I mean, real life speaking, he's not a good person at all. I'm not defending George Soros here, but saying that he's like a secret Nazi sympathizer that rapes babies, I'm going to need some evidence there, pal. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying don't oppose George Soros. I'm not saying he hasn't bankrolled a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of AstroTurfs, because he has, and we have links to that. And he's not a good guy. But you know, do I think that he's like sacrificing goats to summon Narlithotep in his basement? No. No, I don't think that's happening.
The Soros Foundation is secretly the Illuminati.
Yeah, gonna have to see some frickin' some proof there. And Joe Rogan's even said that he thinks that Alex is wrong about other things, like the whole. I was watching the Joe Rogan podcast. He was ranting about Alex's comments about Sandy Hook, and how fucking appalled he was, and he had never heard about them before. And he said next time he has Alex on, he's going to confront him on that. And it wouldn't surprise me if that really strains their friendship. Because, yeah, Alex Jones, he's a bit off his rocker. He really is.
A bit?
Yeah.
Just a bit.
Well, I'll give Alex this. There are some things that he is passionate about, that he has good reason to be passionate about. He is very passionate about the Constitution. And I would fear if a world where people weren't passionate about it, or for a nation that's not passionate about it. But at the same time, yeah, I just don't think he's very bright.
But keep in mind, he's also very passionate about water filters.
I'm fully aware. I'm fully aware of the gay frogs.
Super male vitality.
I keep telling people when that Patreon hits $100, I'm doing I'm putting myself on it for a month, and we'll see what happens.
Micah, you might turn into a gay frog.
Does that just mean I'm going to walk around talking in a French accent all day?
It means you'll be the diversity quota for Battletoads.
Well, so it'll be zit, pimple, rash, and what? Herpes?
No, gonorrhea.
Oh, jeez.
We have fun here.
Yes, we do. No, yeah, I'll be the gay Battletoad called Melanoma. I'll be rainbow colored.
Oh my god. Literal cancer.
Oh, yes. All right, let's see here. We answered the question about Jews in post-World War II Germany on the podcast. This is a general question that we'll use to transition into entertainment. What, if this is the last question from Duke of Tumwater, what, if anything, do content creators owe consumers? So this is an interesting one because, I did a video on Angry Joe, and I actually got into an argument with a fan of his who emailed me. So he emails me and was very confrontational about what I said in the video. And I don't even remember everything I said in that video. I haven't watched it since I put it out. And because I just did it. Here's the interesting thing about the Angry Joe versus his own audience video is I recorded it and I put it out because I knew that there were two people in our audience that would ask the question over and over again on the podcast, and I didn't want to talk about it there. So I'm like, you know what? Why not just release a separate video, put it out there, so they don't ask the question? So, and then lo and behold, it gets like 300,000 views in a week. And I'm like, Jesus! So, the interesting thing about that video is that I got into an argument with this guy about what content creators owe their audience. And my argument is as follows. You owe them what they subscribe to you for. And if you want to keep them, then you need to continuously produce that. If you have no interest in producing that content, you need to be honest with them about it and why you are not doing it. And you also have to respect their decision to walk away. Do not insult them for walking away, though. Ever. Because they could come back. They could dig the new direction you're going in. You never know. So, basically, you owe them content, you owe them respect, and you owe them honesty. I think those are the main three things that a content creator owes his fan base. Is just be honest about what you're doing and why you're doing it, and so on and so forth. And if people don't like the way you're going, that's fine. Just be as respectful as possible. If they're not being respectful to you, though, don't feel like you owe it to them to still be nice. Because at that point, because we had this issue recently in the community, we had a guy who had been a long-time viewer, not a bad kid, but clearly is bad socially with people, just very, very bad socially. And before Hatman kicks me in the leg, I'm not gonna name him, but at one point he continuously started making fun of me for my physical appearance in an attempt for somehow to get me to talk to him and have a conversation with him. And I had one before with him, just one, and he was a bit obsessive, like with trying to talk to me. And finally, I had kind of reached the last straw. I just told him, like, this is fucking stupid. Don't treat me like shit, and I will talk to you. But if you keep treating me like shit, this isn't gonna happen. So, yeah, I kind of treat it just like any sort of like a customer, or I would, like, when it comes to my security job, is respectful, honest, and then from there, if things start to go downhill, don't really feel like you need to continuously cater to them if they don't even want to be a part of what you're doing. So, Hatman, am I wrong in anything there? Because you're awful quiet.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head.
Okay, but yeah, that's
I'm
still
just sitting here shaking my head, but you can't see it, of course.
Yeah, you don't have your camera on. But yeah, needless to say, that is sort of the long and short of it, because I feel like there are way too many content creators out there that will lose sight of what their fans want and take criticism as it is. But I also think that there are content creators out there that don't draw lines in their personal life either. I have a very close circle of friends. And then beyond that, I have friendly acquaintances. And then beyond that, is everybody else. Reason being is, I've been turned on in the past. And whenever I let myself get too friendly. I have Hatman, and I have 2 other friends, and then I have a lot of other people who could become friends, maybe. We'll see what happens. And then everybody else beyond that. So, and if you don't set up those walls, it can really hurt you in the long run. Like, I've heard of content creators that, like, will openly fuck groupies. And I'm like, that's a bad idea.
That's a very bad idea.
Especially in the age of social media. If they record anything or something like that, dude, you're in trouble. So.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's the long and short.
Any sort of real intimate relationship with the fan, I think, is a mistake.
Yes. You got to let relationships grow organically, as with everything else. All right, let's move on to entertainment. John Weissel has a question for us. He's asked this question a couple weeks in a row. John, we answered this one a couple weeks ago for you. So go back a couple podcasts. You asked about 40K, whether or not we thought people would go from Star Wars to 40K. The answer is yes. We do think so. Crystal Wing 2149 asks, do we think that with the murder of Star Wars, do we think Jurassic Park fans like himself should brace for an SJW incursion? I won't let them ruin my childhood like they did Star Wars. Well, here's the thing. You're not really in a place to stop them. I think that we've already seen a part of it. Hatman's review indicated that there is a super feminist lesbian character in it that's really annoying.
Yeah.
You're not the one creating it. You can't really do anything about it. That's the thing. Except move on. And that's one thing that I try to tell people is take every piece of media for what it is, and then if the franchise is going to turn on you, just be prepared to move on to something better.
Yeah, vote with your wallet, of course. I mean, that's what we saw with Ghostbusters, and they tried to scream and cry and gnash their teeth and say it's because they hated women. But I mean, at the end of the day, the fans prevailed, I suppose.
Yeah, basically.
We're not getting a sequel to that movie.
Yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, if you think that something is not up to par in any place in life, just don't buy it. But another thing is, I would just say don't get super attached to franchises even. I have all these posters and stuff of all these games and movies that I enjoy, absolutely, but I take them as they are. And as an entity, and there might be other things associated with them that I'm not necessarily going to like. I'm a fan of the Dark Souls franchise. I have in my entertainment room, I have a poster of the first one on my wall, but I don't like the second game. I haven't even tried Demon's Souls yet, so it's with fandom. You don't want to become a fanboy because you will set yourself up to be way too attached to something and try to make it a part of your identity, and it's not going to fill any holes in your life. It just doesn't. Anything to add there, Hatman?
I had something, but I lost it, so sorry.
Fair enough. All right, Eclectic 1995 asks, is the Metal Gear Solid series popular enough to have a successful theatrical film series, or is it better as a video game series?
God, that's been kicked around forever.
For the longest time, I have thought to myself about whether or not I actually want this a movie of Metal Gear Solid to happen. Reason being is there is so much to it that I honestly don't think it's a good idea at this point.
No.
I would much rather it be a video game and for that to stand alone.
You could do it as like a television series, I think. Just because it's so dense. Like, Season 2 of Westworld just ended. And there was a whole lot there. And it was really confusing, to be perfectly honest. And even, the other people I know that have watched it are like, yeah, I have no idea what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, at least there's still something there. So I guess, all the confusion and what does this even mean? Where is this going? That always happens in the Metal Gear Solid games could be translated in that sort of way. But at the same time, you do want it to actually mean something and not go like full stupid like Lost ended up doing.
Yeah, and that's generally the problem is communicating complication is not easy to do with a general audience. It's very hard to keep together.
Yeah.
So, and not to mention, you have to keep in mind there are 8 games I think in the main Metal Gear series. Metal Gear 1 and 2. Then you've got Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Peace Walker. And I know that there's Revengeance.
Well, yeah, Revenge. And you can count Portable Ops too if you really want to, but some people don't.
Yeah. Well, Kojima doesn't. So.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
But needless to say, though, there's a lot there. It's better suited as a game series. I'm not, and I've always felt like I'm not in a rush for them to be adapted into film, just because I think that a lot of games just stand on their own. I mean, if it's the biggest media in the world right now, there is no freaking reason for it to go down to being a film or a TV series.
Not to mention, like, there are some elements that absolutely could not translate to television or to cinema in general. And I think back to stuff like Psycho Mantis and Metal Gear Solid 1.
Yeah, that would be
the entire Arsenal gear bit in Metal Gear Solid 2.
Oh, absolutely, especially the fission mailed stuff.
Oh yeah, no, there's no way.
There's no good way to translate that. It has to be played.
No. Not to mention, it's just so dense. Like, I was talking, jeez, and I'm gonna forget who I was talking to, but talking about how Angry Joe is not going to play any of the Kingdom Hearts games before Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah.
You know, people are like, you're not going to know what's going on. And I was reminded that there was an entire Metal Gear Solid 4 database that was released like a week after the game came out. And it had like pretty much everything that you'd want to know about the Metal Gear Solid series. And it was so dense, like so much reading. And
yeah,
like,
that thing is an encyclopedia.
Yeah, how are you going to pack that into an easily digestible film or TV series? How would you adapt that?
There's no way. I don't think
It's
no way it could be easily done. And yeah, there's just a lot of elements that you would lose.
Yeah,
because you have to keep in mind that that you'd have to pack in a ton of action sequences into some of those games to really, make it seem interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I
think maybe of all the games, Metal Gear Solid 4 would be the easiest one.
Yeah, because there's so much dialogue.
Well, there's that, and also the formula is, go from point A, point B, cutscene, point A, point B, cutscene, boss fight, cutscene.
It has an episodic feel to it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That would probably translate fairly well. But and I know Kojima's been kicking around the idea of making a Metal Gear Solid movie for the longest time. But
well, now he doesn't have the rights to it anymore.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever going to happen.
No. But he's finding ways to get actors into his games instead.
Yeah.
And I'm okay. And I think that's a good middle ground.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm perfectly fine with Norman Reedus in a video game.
And Mads Mikkelsen too.
Yeah. And we'll start seeing it in other video games too. And it's a better idea, to be frank. We
did.
I hate to say we saw it in we saw it in Mass Effect as well.
Beyond Two Souls.
Beyond as well, but that's not the best example.
No, but that was you still had Ellen Page and Willem Dafoe in it. I mean, those are high profile actors.
Yeah. I haven't played it yet, so I can't really say that much, but I haven't heard good things. All right, let's move on though. I think we're kind of beating a dead horse at that point.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right, Creepy Nazgul says, what do you think of the news Kevin Feige becoming more like Kathleen Kennedy, Ella getting more female directors for more Marvel movies? Are they good?
Yeah. That's all I'm worried about. Are they good?
That's the only question that I think is even relevant. It's like, yeah, you can virtue signal and say so. If they're good directors, then who cares?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's just to get them good press. You know, whether it's just whether or not they're good. If they're not good, then it's ultimately going to become irrelevant.
I think you'd want to get good directors first and foremost because, you know, the quality of the Marvel movies is still something that matters, unlike the comics.
Yeah. So. And then finally, Brian Gilmartin says, would you go for the idea of a Capcom and Square Enix crossover in some form, as unlikely as it is? If they could put it together, I would play it.
A Capcom Squeenix 2D fighter?
Yes.
I'd do that. Or maybe even like a top-down shooter, almost like Cannon Spike.
With Capcom characters?
Well, they did that already. That was on Dreamcast.
What game are you talking about?
Cannon Spike.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it's like a top-down shooter sort of game with Capcom characters in it. I know at least Mega Man X is in there.
Well, X has a gun. Like that makes sense.
Yeah.
But you have to think of how many Street Fighter characters get thrown in.
Oh, why not?
The problem that I have is...
God, I don't know who you throw in from Square Enix. I mean, obviously you got like Final Fantasy characters there. Kingdom Hearts.
Whatever. I'm not impressed.
You're looking at it, you're like, nah.
Nah. No.
It
fighting
plays
game.
a lot better than it looks.
Fighting game. That's where the money's at anyway.
Yeah, I'll take a 2D fighter any day.
The problem is they're gonna have to put more effort into it than they have their most recent games.
Yeah.
That's the real kicker. Is Street Fighter V has had a myriad of issues and has had a hard time really getting a long-term audience, just because it doesn't have that great of a presentation, of like visually speaking.
Marvel versus Capcom Infinite.
Yeah, same problem. Visual and the visuals were just not there, and even then, like the gameplay just failed to resonate with people for whatever reason. Street Fighter V especially. Infinite had better gameplay, but because the visuals were so bad, people couldn't get into it. You know, because people... Here's the thing. The King of Fighters 14 having lower end visuals compared to other fighting games these days makes sense. SNK is not a very big company, even though they had Atlas Publishing. You know, like they still didn't have a ton of money behind that game, and it still was more successful than what they thought it was going to be. And I own it. It's a hell of a game. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, same caliber in my opinion, but the fact that Capcom is as big as it is and has put forward so many good-looking video games, and then that gets released, and you see that, you're like, what the hell? It's just they have to be able to compete with other companies, and they're just not doing it. You know, you look at Tekken 7, for example, which looks fucking amazing. You look at For Honor, which looks fucking amazing. You know, it's like if you can't bring those visuals up to par, people aren't going to accept that you're able to compete. They just don't want to buy your product. But even so, if you could put forward a really good versus game where I can use like Cloud Strife and Tifa against frickin' Captain Commando and Chun-Li, I'm all for it. I think that would be fun as hell. So
you just have to get a good roster of Square Enix characters and not just make it basically Dissidia Final Fantasy versus Capcom.
Well, you've got a ton of Final Fantasy characters. You've got the Chrono series. You've got Star Ocean. You've got they own
Kingdom
the rights.
Hearts.
They own the rights to Deus Ex, Kingdom Hearts. Adam Jensen versus Captain Commando would be pretty awesome.
Hold on,
personally.
do they own Eidos also?
Yeah.
Okay, so they have Tomb Raider too.
Yes. So Lara Croft as well. So yeah, there's potential.
God, just imagine Lara Croft in a freaking 2D fighting game.
Lara Croft versus Lin Kurosawa. I'd be down. Do you even know what reference that is?
That was a reference to something?
You don't know who Lin Kurosawa is?
No.
You haven't played the AVP arcade game, have you?
No, I have not.
And you don't have a Windows computer, so I don't think you can download Fightcade to play it.
Nope.
Hatman's a Philistine, folks.
I sold my soul to Steve Jobs many, many years ago.
Shame. Well, so at some point you're gonna have to play the AVP arcade game. Find a way to do it, because it's freaking incredible. It is an AVP beat 'em up.
AVP beat 'em up.
Yes, Final Fight style.
All right, I'll take your word for it.
Well, there's two predators. There's a chick named Lin Kurosawa with a sword, and then there's Dutch from Predator with a giant robot arm.
Now, wait a minute. Alien vs. Predator arcade.
Yes.
Are you sure you didn't like boot this up when I was up there at your place?
I did, and you played it for a little bit, maybe. But I don't remember we played it very long because I was exhausted.
It must have literally been a little bit because I really don't remember it at all.
Well, you definitely need to play it again because it's freaking great. I remember my dad gave me like $5 worth of quarters, and I saw it in the arcade. I'm like, I have to play this, and I beat it, and I realized I'd spent all my money. I'm like, oh.
But it was worth it, I assume.
Yes. It's stuck with me ever since. I don't think it's ever been released on a console either, so. Alright, folks. That is all we have for this week, and I need to eat something before work tonight. So, podcast coming up this Saturday once again, so don't forget to be there. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do so. Aside from that, is there anything else to add, Hatman?
Nope. I'm just really hungry.
All right. Well, folks, we're going to go get food. My name is Micah Curtis.
And I'm Alex Belbin, also known as The Hatman.
And we'll see you next week. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.